When someone passes away, their family does not need your condolences. They definitely don't need floral arrangements sent to their home. What they need is a covered dish because they are dealing with grief, the normal stresses of everyday life, and they may be planning a funeral that they weren't budgeting for. So if you can help them in any small way, such as taking the stress of what's for dinner off of their responsibilities list, this will be a great friend thing to do. We're going to make a tuna casserole for our household and for the household of a family that we know that just lost an immediate family member. Okay, we're going to use 1 large can of tuna in water. I think this is the 12-ounce can. Normally I would use 2 cans, i.e. 1 for each casserole. However, this household has 2 very small children. I never know with American children if they have been acclimated to the taste of fish. For some reason, Americans don't eat a lot of fish. So I don't want to do that to her, take a chance that the kids might not eat it. So we're just going to use 1 can, but normally feel free to use 2. 1 can of cream of mushroom soup. We're going to use butter. We need 2 onions. You could use white onions. I'm using, I guess these are like yellow onions, sweet onions, breadcrumbs, milk, 1 8-ounce package of white button mushrooms, peas. I do encourage you to get the 2-pound bag of peas. You're only going to use half of it, i.e. 16 ounces. But this was less per ounce than the one that has a thicker bag in which you can steam it in the bag. I'm not paying more for that because I'm not cooking it in the bag. And peas freeze really well, and you can use it for lots of other dishes. I love it in pea paneer, matar paneer. You'll need celery. You'll need that entire bag of the egg noodles, parsley. Please don't leave out the parsley. You'll need cheese. I can't tell you exactly how much cheese you'll need. This is kind of like do what you want to do. You can't go wrong using more cheese, in my opinion. Thyme. You could use fresh thyme or dried. For your seasonings, you could use sazon, like the complete seasoning. I'm not using that. I'm just using thyme, black pepper, cayenne. Please don't leave out the cayenne. You need a little bit of a kick to this. Otherwise, it's going to be bland. If you're not going to use fresh garlic like I am, you can use powdered garlic. I do encourage you to use fresh garlic. Crushed red pepper flakes. Please don't leave that out. It does need a little bit of a kick. You can use either fresh garlic, which you'd probably use a whole head of garlic in this case. I'm just going to use the equivalent to like 6 to 8 cloves of already minced garlic. I got this at a fantastic deal, this entire giant jar of it. Not pictured is canola oil spray and sugar. Now I'm going to try to make this as little cleanup as possible, and so I'm using a stock pot and a wooden spoon. I'm also going to need my strainer or colander for my egg noodles. And I'm also using, which are available at the dollar store for $2 for 2 of them, the casserole pans. Please never send to somebody a covered dish with a dish like this that you need back. I'm going to, for my own family, our own household, I'm going to use our own casserole dish. But never send somebody food in non-disposable containers that need to be returned. You're just giving them a job. I'll even show you how to make this even more convenient for them. So as we boil our noodles, or getting the water to the boil, I should say, for the noodles in our stock pot, we chopped up our 2 onions, our 1 pack of mushrooms, and about 4 stalks of celery. I don't think I mentioned this before, but whenever I'm at the grocery store in the produce section, I grab extra produce bags, and I find some bowl or pot in my kitchen, and I line that pot or bowl with the produce bag, and I use it as my little kitchen countertop trash bag, You don't want to be running back and forth to the trash can. I can always tell when people don't mise en place and prep their kitchen for trash because they have like drip marks on cabinets and there are spill marks on the floor. So always make sure you're not running back and forth. Get that trash can. Okay, so we have removed the noodles from the stock pot and we draining those noodles. So we can just let those noodles sit there. We don't have to cover them in oil. Don't worry. This is only going to take like literally just a few minutes. Now I'm going to use 4 tablespoons of butter. So in other words, half a stick. Dump in both of my chopped 2 onions in here. It does seem like a lot of butter, but remember, we're making 2 whole casseroles, and each casserole is going to easily serve 5 people, maybe 6. So those only needed about a minute and a half to sweat. And then we toss in our mushrooms, onions, and the mushrooms, the celery. All of this is going to give off liquid. So that really only took about a minute. We're going to add about a teaspoon and a half of salt here. Every layer, ideally, we do want to salt it. You never want to wait until the end of cooking to salt food. I don't really understand the science of it, but every layer needs to get seasoned during the cooking process. It just won't come out as good otherwise. All right, that only took about a minute, and then we tossed in our celery. Again, this will also only take about literally 60 seconds. I have my burner on medium high. Again, I'm salting about a teaspoon, I would say, teaspoon and a half. Your mixture is going to taste a little salty, but remember, you do need to add the noodles. So that's going to balance things out. Of course, make sure that you do salt any kind of pasta or noodle water. I'm just free pouring this in here. I'm shooting for anywhere between 6 to 8 garlic cloves. And that got to cook with the garlic for about a minute and a half. We don't want to go more than that. And we do want to make sure that the garlic goes in much later because garlic is so apt to burn. And we'd be ruining everything if the garlic gives off, instead of that sweet nutty flavor, it ends up giving off a burned flavor. Yuck. All right, now I've turned off the heat after the minute and a half that the garlic had to cook, and I'm adding my frozen peas. The peas will also be giving off water as they thaw. And by adding our peas frozen, we're doing 2 things, because we're not going to cook those here in this pot. We're just letting them thaw. They're going to retain their shape and their crunchy crispness and a little bit of sweetness. I'm adding yet another teaspoon of salt here. But they're also going to cool off this mixture a little bit, which is kind of what I want. I don't want it like boiling hot as I assemble my casserole. Now, I left that off of the burner just to cool just for a minute. I started to chop up my cheese. I cannot tell you exactly how much cheese that you need. I can tell you that a medium, probably not a sharp, maybe a medium cheddar will do best here. As well as provolone. Provolone always goes very well with tuna. If you see like tuna melts, provolone is often the cheese that they use. I'm just going to divide this more or less in half between the 2 casseroles. Err on the side of more cheese if you are a cheese lover. There are many other cheeses that would go good here. You could, if you have a little Mott's, that's fine. Don't be afraid to use pre-shredded cheese. I know that there's been a lot of misinformation about that. Oh, it won't melt. All of the big pizza places, they use pre-shredded cheese. And somehow the cheese melts on the pizza, so it's melting. Most pre-shredded cheeses come coated in a potato starch or something called cellulose, which is just a plant starch. It's not a problem at all. What potentially is the problem is when companies don't disclose how much cellulose they use, and they're using it not to just to prevent the product from caking and clumping up, but they're using it as a filler. Now, Parmesan cheeses are only supposed to have up to 1% of that coating. Most of them have up to 4%, and some, like I think it's Kraft, they even have up to 10%. So you're paying for, I don't want to pay for starches and fillers when I think I'm paying for Parmesan cheese. So that's the real problem. But don't be afraid to use shredded cheese. You could totally use that here. All right, so we dumped in our can of cream chicken soup. We put in 1 cup of milk. And now it's time to season. So you're going to put in a little bit and you're going to taste. Put in a little bit and taste. Obviously with a clean tasting spoon each time. Don't put a spoon that's been in your mouth into food. You can always add more. You can't take away. Keep in mind, this should be a little bit more assertively seasoned and a tiny bit more salty than what you want, because remember, when you add the noodles to this, it's going to thin out the flavors. I ended up seasoning, I think, a total of 3 times. I also ended up adding about a teaspoon of sugar. That might surprise you. You might say, well, this is a savory dish. Just that little bit of sugar, 1 teaspoon between at least 10 servings is not going to taste sweet, but it is going to like balance out the saltiness. Just try it. Just trust me. Okay. Now we're ready to assemble our casserole. I have not only have I used a disposable casserole pan, but I've lined it with aluminum foil. And I'm going to rub that in the butter wrapper that my butter stick came in. And that way, cleanup is a breeze. If my friend decides that she wants to reuse this pan for something else, she can. We're going to fill our casserole pan half of the way with the noodle tuna casserole mix. We're going to top that with cheese, middle of the way. Then we're going to, again, fill up with the tuna casserole mix, and we're going to top that with 4 tablespoons of butter. So we do end up using an entire stick of butter here for 1 casserole, and we're going to top it with the remaining cheese, and then we're also going to top it with breadcrumbs. I'll say probably about a cup of breadcrumbs. This is going to go covered with foil into a well preheated 375-degree oven for 30 minutes. At the end of 30 minutes, if you want to serve this to your family tonight, here's what you're going to do. You're going to remove the foil. You're going to turn the broiler on. You're going to spray the top of this, which is the breadcrumbs, right? You're going to spray that with vegetable oil or olive oil, and you're going to put it back under the broiler, and that is going to turn your breadcrumbs into something nice and crunchy. Well, you have a little crunchy topping. And after 5 minutes, you can take it out. You can let it cool on a cooling rack, and you're going to top it with parsley. If you are delivering this to a friend, it's going to come out of the oven without the broiler step. You're going to list what is this thing that you've given them, because probably other people are giving them stuff too. We don't want them to have to open up the foil and figure out what is this thing that I have. Even better if you can put your name on it so that they can ask you if they have any questions. So the plan for this is that they will remove this they will keep this in the freezer until they want to use it, unless they want to use it today. When she is going to work, she can remove this from the freezer and she can put it into her refrigerator. It's going to spend all day thawing while she's at work. When she comes home with the children, she just needs to preheat her oven. She'll pop this into the oven. And now she knows that she needs to set that timer for a certain number of minutes. She'll take it out. She'll spray it with the olive oil. And I've also taped onto this a little baggie of already chopped up parsley. And you can make Oh, and I would also always make sure all of those directions are written clearly onto the foil, because it may end up being another relative who you don't know who's trying to figure out what's for dinner. And that way they're just looking in the fridge trying to figure things out. You will be surprised to find out what people do and don't know about cooking. I actually had a young lady who's a former coworker of mine who called me and she said, "You would be so proud of me. I'm baking." And what she was baking was the pre-made cookie dough in the tube from the grocery store. Oh, bless her heart. I am proud of you that you're baking. And she said, "I just have a question for you. When am I supposed to flip them?" And I said, "What?" She said, "I know I saw somebody on television cooking a steak and they flipped it halfway through. So when do I flip these cookies halfway through?" Oh my God. So what I'm saying is you will be surprised how many people just have zero clue about what they're doing in the kitchen. So if you really want to be kind to them, list out things that you might think don't need to be listed out. When in doubt, list it out. Now you can really make this a complete meal and make the food stretch a little bit longer by adding some Parker House rolls, also in a disposable container. And those can also go into the oven. And I'll show you how I made those for the same friend the other day. I also made her some key lime cheesecake bars. A little sweet treat for her household. Especially when served with the rolls, this will serve 6 people. So there are 4 people in their household right now. And that means that at least one person will be able to take this for lunch the next day if they want to. If you really want to be a blessing to other people, you can cook for them. No, I'm not saying that you have to cook. I'm not saying that people should always expect it from you. But I promise you, in this day and age, nobody is prepared for someone to think about them. And when you do, it will be appreciated and it will be remembered much more than those floral arrangements and cards. This friend, sadly, they were not prepared for a funeral. This was something that was really sudden. And so I don't yet know if they know what is the plan for the funeral. But if and when I am needed for funeral food, you'll see some of that too. I have some funeral tips for you. I was just talking with someone the other day. I had no idea how many American people have never been to a funeral or have been to very few funerals. I have been to hundreds of funerals. And what it tells me is that a lot of Americans are out here doing it on their own when a family member passes. I would love to see that change. I would love to see us become a much more communal society that can take care of each other. I believe that as a financially prosperous country, we were able to get away with a lot of individualism. And I don't think this is a controversial or hot take. I think that America as a whole is about to become a lot poorer, which means that the people who will survive are the ones who learned how to band together and help each other in their time of need.